Enlightenment. Okay. What in God's name is enlightenment? Like people talk about the enlightened Buddha and enlightened masters and um, like like
lines to come down.
and if you ask, basically you just get something. Something like it's like a state of transcendence, it's like a state of transcendence, and but actually the clue is in the name, enlightenment. It means enlightenment basically means to remove dimness or blindness. That's what enlightenment is. To see things clearly as they are. What we call in the business yata bhuta. I often think this would be a great kind of drinking phrase, yata bhuta. Down the short. Anyway, I said it would hinder me from going off, but it doesn't prevent it. So, enlightenment, to directly experience being, to see clearly things as they are. And most people's entrance into this Buddhist spiritual path is usually through shamatha, and mostly shamatha meditation, shine, peacefully remaining, and mostly people practice shamatha in order to experience a tranquil mind, and that's the way it's presented to a lot of people, I would say 99.99% of all household Buddhists. But stillness is not the purpose of peacefully remaining. Shamatha's purpose is to create a circumstance where you directly experience movement in your mind. It's actually not about attaining tranquility. It's creating the circumstance where you can directly experience the movement in your mind. When there's a lot of movement in your mind, it's very difficult to identify the movement. It's like if you're very, very busy, it's easy to be clumsy. The more hurry, the less speed. And so the purpose of shamatha is to create the circumstance where you can directly experience movement in your mind. Meditation is to come to know your own mind. That's the purpose of meditation. It's not to create a mental state. It's to come to know your own mind. Now, a little very critical point. When we say come to know your own mind, when you say know, it covers more than just seeing what is there. It's a little bit like if somebody says to you, "Oh, I know computers," I should hope that doesn't mean that they can say, "Oh, that's a computer, that isn't a computer." You would hope that they knew something about computers themselves, about the nature of the beast they're talking about. So when we come to talk about knowing our mind, it refers to knowing the nature of what is in your mind. And so this is what the shamatha practice does, is creates a circumstance where you can begin to see not just what's happening in your mind, but the nature of what's happening in your mind. So you begin by cultivating stillness, right? That gets interrupted by a movement in your mind. To see that you have stillness destroyed by movement. To see this is the purpose of the meditation. So there's no fixation on tranquility. So when you have a somewhat tranquil mind, you just look. You don't try to sustain the tranquility. You simply look. You simply become aware of the functioning of your mind. And you may even notice something quite remarkable. That thoughts themselves, just as stillness is destroyed by a movement of mind, thoughts themselves are destroyed by subsequent thoughts. There's nothing solid. We're basically living in a sea of change, where there's movement, stillness, temporary fixation, movement. Nothing sticks. Can you see that? This knowing the nature of the activity in mind is called rigpa. That's rigpa. Being able to see and know the nature of the activity in your mind. The underlying, unchanging nature. This simple presence, awareness, the unchanging rigpa. Everything else is fleeting. Everything else is fleeting. Everything else is fleeting. The only thing that doesn't change is the rigpa. Everything else is fleeting. And all this is accomplished just by sitting here. Okay, so let's just sit together for a little bit. So you don't have to establish things as being empty. You don't have to have some idea that all these things are empty. Sit back and watch. Their nature reveals itself time and time again. The rigpa is sustained by effortlessness. Yata Bhuta. Everything just as it is. So the fixation mind, the mind that's trying to establish fixation, is there in the background. Put it very simply, don't listen to confusion. Just simply rest in awareness. The fixating mind, seeing the fixating mind, is included in that awareness. Just don't fall for it. So you've got things to do. You've got money burning a hole in your pocket that you need to spend.
Thank
So
you.